Okay, we are heading up to Wyoming's Sherman Range. It's a small little granite range in southeast Wyoming. So we're going to go on an overnighter up there and see if we can find some snow and some really cool rock formations, and it's a really neat area. So glad you're joining me today. I'm carrying a pretty light pack. It's about 15 pounds. And this video kind of goes along with the podcast about winter backpacking gear that we just released. So see you soon. Gonna head up now. Rock and roll. I'm carrying a little bit of extra weight, so my pack isn't really 15 pounds, but what I don't have included in my weight is my camera gear, and that's probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 pounds. And then I am bringing, you saw me put on the spikes, I am bringing both spikes and snowshoes, because I don't really know what to expect, and there might be a time where I won't need or want either one. I also brought skis, but I left the skis in the truck because this terrain around here is a bit complicated and rough. There might be, I'm sure we'll hit some bushwhacking, I'm sure we'll do some rock scrambling, and skis are just kind of a pain. So that's my footwear system, that's my pack I'm carrying. Realistically, with the snowshoes on it, I probably have 23 pounds maybe. So let's go with that. Okay, on we go. Okay, there's the truck way over there. So, give you an idea of the area here. Got a large sandstone, sorry, no, not sandstone, that's Sherman granite formation. And there's another one in the distance. And we're probably gonna try to work to split between the two, so we'll work our way from here. So the sun's starting to go down. I got kind of a late start today. It's, I don't know, maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Probably have an hour and a half of usable light left. I think sunset's around 5:20. And it feels warm. It was pretty cold when I started out, but you know, the temperature's in the teens right now, but the sun feels really good and the wind isn't blowing, which is rare for up here, but I imagine it's going to pick up here pretty soon. So that's kind of why I'm wearing the goggles. I'm having some recovery time for my eyes. I normally wear contact lenses, but I have an attack of papillary conjunctivitis right now. It's an allergic reaction that's taking several weeks to heal. So that's why I'm trying to protect my eyes, which is really nice in the wind. Okay, so we just went through a fence. I think we're gonna hit a trail over here, and that will take us into the backcountry proper. Absolutely beautiful evening here though. Gorgeous. Should be a nice night. Okay, it's getting warm now, so I'm going to shed my shell layer, and I'll talk about what I'm wearing today. Okay, so in the wind, cold, this is my basic 3-layer layering system. I have a Bernier merino wool t-shirt fishnet, a great layer for just getting the sweat off your skin surface and passing it into the next layer. Big holes, keeps you nice and cool when you're working hard. But at the same time, if you're wearing layers on top of it, those same holes trap some air and give you some insulating ability. On top of the fishnet t-shirt, I have a Patagonia Nano Air light hoodie. So really light, active insulation layer with really breathable fabrics. So this system with these two pieces, that's my normal hiking wear in the winter. Now if it's really cold, like 0 degrees or less, and especially with wind, I will add one more layer in between these two. It's usually a smart wool, lightweight merino wool hoodie, but not needed right now. I'm not expecting temperatures tonight to get down below 0 or anything like that. And then when the wind is blowing, as it was up at the truck, I put a shell layer on. This is a hard shell. It's not necessary when it's super cold. I prefer a wind shirt. It's more comfortable, and I could have kept walking if I just had my wind shirt on. I brought both this time because I'm doing some testing with the two, but normally I would bring either the wind shirt or the hard shell, and mostly dependent on what kind of precipitation I'm expecting. So with the hard shell, I take that when the temperatures are a bit warmer and I might expect heavy snow, or I might take the hard shell if I know I'm going to be playing in the snow, like bushwhacking through wet bush, or building a snow shelter, or being on the ground a lot and fiddling with a fire. The hard shell pants are essential if you're going to play around in the snow. The hard shell jacket is really nice for bushwhacking and wet precipitation. Some pretty deep drifts on the trail, which is kind of actually hard to keep track of, but I think it's over here. That was almost snowshoe tape walking, but the snow's pretty consolidated up here. It's been a few days since it snowed, and the drifts aren't very deep. I think this is the way. I'm definitely on some kind of trail. All right, we gotta check the maps. I use Gaia GPS, and David Hosmer just did a great review of this at Backpacking Light. Reviewed a whole bunch of GPS apps, and Gaia and one other one were his favorites. Gaia is far and away my favorite. Yeah, it seems okay. We'll get somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. This is just not the trail I want to be on. I don't think. I really want to go that way, so I think we're just going to go that way rather than follow this trail, which seems to go a way I don't want to go. Okay. Let's backtrack a little bit and then see if we can find an easier way through here. Okay, I found the path I wanted. But now I'm in the trees. The snow is a bit deeper, but it's not too bad. Just some deep drifts to go through, so I'm going to keep my spikes on for now, I think. I'd much rather have snowshoes for this, but I'm going to take the gamble that it's going to be short-lived. That's better. That's not better. It's deep. Very surprised. When you look at this area from the road, it looks barren, but you get into the trees and it's just full of snow, which is good. And I'm prepared. I got the honey badgers. They're up to the task. Okay. Try a little bit farther. Oh. Post holing. Well, let's see. With the deep snow, I've clearly lost the trail now. The snow is deep enough to cover the tree cuts that are the telltale sign, you know, when a tree falls across the trail. So we're having to work a little bit this evening, but it's quiet, it's pretty, beautiful night, hard to complain. Okay, we're back on the trail. You can kind of see the track wandering through the trees here. Some old snowshoe tracks, kind of making a nice depression that allows us to recognize the trail now. Okay, so those are moose tracks, and that's one of the reasons I carry bear spray in the middle of winter. Another reason is for mountain lions, but they're not as common. Moose, very common. Aggressive moose, well, pretty common. For our experience, Stephanie and I have been charged by moose twice in this area, including one very scary incident where the moose came within a distance where I could touch it, and I fell down on the ground and got banged up, but that's a story for another day. I need not to be thinking about moose right now. Or at least I need not to be thinking about scary moose right now. I'm thinking about moose. So the wind is very calm right now. I'm going to remove the goggles and enjoy this really incredible view behind me. Isn't that cool? That's Sherman granite. Very sharp granite, but rock climbers love it. Very abrasive though. They get beat up pretty bad. Oh, still some ice around. Okay, so that's kind of the first leg of our route today. Now we want to kind of figure out a way to get through and over that rock formation. Found a road. We're walking on a road right now. It's all drifted in. All right, so we found a little break in the mountains right there. So let's scramble up there and hopefully we can get good footing that I don't have to take my crampons and overboots off. But if it comes down to scrambling on bare rock, then I'll probably have to do that. All right, let's go. All right, well, we're dead-ended. I mean, now if it was summer, I had a day pack, some grippy shoes, and it wasn't like, 10 degrees out, I think it'd be okay. But I'm out here, I'm alone, it's winter. It's not awesome scrambling around the boulders like that. I definitely thought the route would be easier through here. So we're gonna head back down and look for a plan B. All right, let's go. I changed my mind. We're back to plan A. I found a spot. I'm gonna take my pack off, put it up, then I'll hop up on the rock. I think it'll be a bit easier up ahead. So let's try it. It's super cold, so I'd like to climb with gloves, but I'm gonna have to do this section without it. So I do not want to lose my gloves, so I am attaching them to my body. Okay. Well, I think we're pretty good now. One more little step up here that I'll probably want to put my pack up for. Okay, should be home free from here, but who knows? We'll see. Still have some daylight left. I gotta get my gloves on. Hands are really cold. Rock climbing in 10-degree temperatures is not awesome. Okay, that was definitely type 2 fun. Obviously from the footage you can see that I re-engaged plan B. So we're walking through it's kind of a picnic area. It's accessible during the summer, but all the roads are closed out here in the wintertime. So nobody's picnicking. But here we go, we're backtracking now, and we tried to go over the rocks. Now we're going around them because it's going to be dark pretty soon, and I don't want to be stuck in rocks I can't scramble out of after dark. All right, let's find a place to camp. So if you look at the time-lapse movie of the descent, you'll see where I stopped and found and picked up my bear spray that I had dropped. So that happens when you're like so focused on the task at hand that your mental capacity just isn't able to deal with like multiple things at once. And I was so focused on getting up and over that rock step that I didn't even realize that I dropped my bear spray. And I didn't pay attention when I clipped my hip belt back on once I climbed above that step. So be aware of little mistakes like that. Those are signs that if you're going into difficult situations, you don't want to be making little mistakes like that. It's a sign that you're not mentally aware of everything that's going on, and you got to be totally on point when you're doing stuff like this. It's winter, it's dark, and I didn't have it tonight, so I'm actually kind of glad to be back down here. I'm really glad the wind isn't blowing. With no wind, clear skies, we can walk all night if we want. Let's see how far we get. Sun has gone down. We are walking through the front country campground now, looking through the trail. Beautiful sunset though. Check that out. Okay, we are back off pavement and onto snow. Walking a road through a beautiful aspen grove that I bet is awesome in October when the leaves are turning. The sun is well behind the horizon now, and probably maybe 10 degrees out. It's not bad. It's not like, you know, my snot is freezing or anything like that. Oh, maybe a little bit, actually. But it's calm and I'm warm. It feels good. Now we're walking in deeper snow through the aspens on a summer trail, which Doesn't really matter because nobody's been walking on it recently. So it's might as well just be traipsing through the forest. It's getting pretty dark, but not too dark for a headlamp quite yet. But you guys are probably seeing a pretty dark image on the screen there. So I'll probably put my video light on here in a little bit. Snow's pretty deep. I think I'm definitely wearing snowshoes on the way out tomorrow. But we're hiking along a creek, which is nice because I can hear running water. So cross your fingers that we won't have to melt snow. If we do, we do. It's not a big deal. But yeah, that'd be kind of nice. There's some open water right down here. That'd be okay. But camping is not awesome here. So we'll keep going. I like to be out in the open. Some views, but next to a forest, so I can build a fire. I need a fire. I don't have a stove. And it's going to be a long night tonight, a lot of dark. And a fire would add some cheer to that. All right, we have light, so hopefully you can see that a little better. Of course, I can't see a thing with those lights glaring in my eyes, so from here on out I'll probably just stand still while I'm doing video. Otherwise it's going to be very exciting for you and unpleasant for me. So still looking for a campsite. Okay, I think I have a campsite, so we'll show it to you in the morning. But I've got this expansive view this way. I'm tucked into a little forest, looks like pines this way. Pretty sparse trees, which is fine on a night like this. It's probably going to be pretty calm. I've got this epic, flat, soft bedding area here, a bunch of duff, and I can put my fire right down here close to the shelter so I don't have to walk far, but far enough away that it won't throw sparks on my Dyneema tarp. Okay, so that's about it for the hike. I'm going to set up the shelter now. I know the camera is somewhere back there, but those lights are blinding. Okay, first things first, it's super cold. So the clothes I'm hiking in is not going to cut it. So I'm going to put on 2 puffy layers, 1 set of pants, which are synthetic, kind of a climate shield or something like that. And the other pair, or the other garment, is my down jacket. The camera's perched on a rock. I'm going to use that rock to kind of lay out my gear. That way I know where everything is, and I can stay super organized. When you arrive in camp in the dark, yeah, it's easy to get disorganized pretty quick, especially if the weather's bad. Just be mindful of that when you do that. I'm going to put on my buff. As you can see, I've been wearing a fleece hat today. I prefer a buff and a fleece hat over balaclava. It just gives me more flexibility. And then I can put the Nano Air hood on top of all that. And if I really need it, I can use the hood of my down parka. Okay, that's what I wanted, my thin gloves, so that I don't have to wear my thick ones. And my hands are starting to get cold in these temperatures, so it's kind of nice to have a pair of liners along. there's my puffy pants. Now if I had planned better, I would have kept my puffy layers closer to the top of my pack. I had my jacket up there, but not my pants. I prefer a side zip pant in the winter because that means I can take it on and off over snowshoes or crampons. They're backwards. I can't handle that. Being super careful with those spikes. They're really sharp, and so they'll shred anything that you step on. So those need to stay away from fabrics. I'm taking the time to make sure my layers are tucked in and layered over each other well. Keeps you warmer, and it's just more comfortable. And it's easier to do when you're dressing rather than trying to fiddle with it later if you're cold, hungry, tired, or the weather gets bad. So I like to take the time to get dressed right away, because now I'm super warm, super comfortable, and I'm ready to set up my shelter and take my time and not be in a panic. Get out my flashlight. Also should have been near the top of my pack, but I was in a hurry packing today and did not have a lot of time. Oh, that's better. That is better. And there's the tarp. Okay, so I have no tent stakes today. Most of the ground is totally frozen solid anyways. I was hoping for deeper snow for the camp, but I really like the pine duff bed, so I'm gonna stick with that. I think it'll be a lot warmer than sleeping directly on the snow. So I'll have to find rocks. I got some trees here I can tie to. We'll have to get creative, so we'll see what happens. Okay, I changed my mind. There's no rocks around here at all that are not frozen into the ground, but I found a snowdrift up here, or some snow that's pretty deep, and then I can use sticks as deadman anchors, and that can be my stakeout points for the tarp. So I'm gonna switch out of my spikes, get into my snowshoes so I can tamp down a camp area and pitch just up the hill up here. Okay, so we have sculpted a bed in the snow right here, and we're gonna let that settle while we do other things. So I'll probably go and collect firewood or something, or maybe I'll go ahead and set up the tarp while this settles. But it needs to settle and center, S-I-N-T-E-R, I believe is the spelling. It's got to settle and center so the snow sticks together and becomes nice and hard. Otherwise, you know, you step on it and it makes holes in your bed and things like that. So we're gonna let that sit for a while. The InReach app on my phone is not working, so I'm trying to text Stephanie using the InReach. This text message only took me 10 minutes to type. What a mess. You gotta have the phone app. All right, so I just got really hungry, and I'm gonna wait to make dinner for a while because I like to do it with a fire. And I have a pretty cool little stove I want to show you, a wood stove. So I want to get the shelter set up and everything first. So I'm going to eat some cashews, tide me over, and maybe a chocolate cookie. And then I'll finish setting up the shelter, and And then we'll build a fire and cook dinner. One more scoop of nuts. Okay, so the snow is starting to center up on the bed and solidify. And before it gets too hard, I want to sculpt it a little bit more because it's just it's a little bit high on the head end. So I'm going to scoop some of that out. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, here I'm going to dig a little entryway, which is where I can, when I'm sitting on my mattress, I'll have some place to put my feet, and this is where I'll come in and out of the tarp. Okay, that should work. The only issue is now I definitely can't sit on the bed until that's rock solid, so this wall doesn't cave in. Okay, so I'm going to do a modified A-frame pitch. So the back edge is going to be staked right down into the snow with a couple of deadmen. The ridge line, which will go from head to foot, I'll use my trekking poles as supports and then stake that down into the snow with deadmen. And then the bottom foot corner will be staked low, and the bottom head corner will be staked high, so I have some headroom under there. So what I'm going to do is break some big sticks off, some dead wood I can find, bury those in the snow, and those are going to be my deadman anchors. And I'm going to tie releasable hitches to those because they're going to be frozen solid in the morning, and that way in the morning I can just untie the hitch and pull the cord out. The dead man stays in the snow, and I don't have to try to dig it out of frozen ground. Okay, so we've got our tarp pitched. I've got dead men on dead men on 3 corners, the 2 back corners and this lower front one. The upper front one, like I said before, I was going to pitch the front high for headroom. So I tied that to a tree over there with the trucker's hitch. And then I also tied the midpoint guy out on the front edge up high to a tree with a releasable hitch as well, again, for headroom purposes. So really, it's just like pitching a tarp in any other season. And it's winter. I'm not expecting a blizzard tonight. There's stars out and it's dead calm right now, so this should be fine. And if something comes in and starts howling, I've got a bivy sack, so that can be my backup plan. But this is going to withstand some substantial wind. The dead men are completely solid. They're centered in. I've compacted them and stood on them with my snowshoes to put weight on that to provide the pressure that allows the snow to really bond together. So it's a pretty solid pitch, all things considered. Plus, you know, I'm in the edge of a forest. Prevailing storms are going to come this way across my back edge, and I've got a bunch of trees blocking me behind. So all in all, it's a great camp. It's cold, so the fitting on my inflation bag, it's a little small for the valve on my sleeping pad, so I gotta warm up the plastic a little bit with some breath so I can get it over the valve easier. I had fitted this by dropping this in some boiling water and then putting it over the valve and then shrinking it by letting it cool. But I think I need to do that again because it is a bugger to get on tonight. Here's my pillow, which is just a pillow Dyneema pillow sack, stuff sack with a zipper in it, and I've got some open cell foam stuffed in there, personalized to my comfort level. And tonight I got a 10-degree sleeping bag, the REI Magma, and I have total confidence I'm going to be plenty warm, and I know it's going to be less than 10 degrees tonight, because it probably already is. And then the last thing I have in here, hopefully, yes, thank goodness, a pair of sleep socks, dry socks, because my socks will be damp. Time for dinner. Okay, first things first, I'm going to head up into the woods to find some firewood. I'm looking for, we're kind of deep in the middle of winter right now, so ideally a dead tree that's still in place and straight up and down would be awesome, about arm width or arm diameter. Then I can cut it and that'll give me really dry wood, but we'll see. I don't see a lot of dead trees standing around here, but we'll see what we can find. Okay, this one's not straight up and down, but in a dry climate like this, it'll still be pretty dry. So it's dry, it's solid, it's a good stick. So I brought my saw, so I am going to cut this, and this is going to be our big wood for tonight. Very good find. There's another one right behind it too. Two more right behind it. That works up a sweat, so I'd prefer not to do that. So I'm going to take my parka off. All right, so we went down and got water. It's about a 15-minute walk away before I could find some open water. Down the hill, so that means up the hill in deep snow back to camp, and I didn't take my snowshoes, which was dumb. But we got water, easy water source. Now it's time to start cooking some dinner. Let's get this fire going again though.
Every day for 242 days as he used nothing but his own 2 feet to cross the entire country, from Delaware to California. He did something that a lot of us are unwilling or unable to do: slow down. And I think that's pretty damn cool. I'm Fitzco Hall.
I'm Cordelia Zars.
And you're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries.
Okay, so you have to listen to that episode of the Dirtbag Diaries. Jonathan Stahl. It was an awesome podcast. I will put a link to that podcast in the video description. Listen to it. And slow down. It's good for you. It's 10 o'clock. I'm tired. It was a long day. I had a poor night's sleep last night and got up early this morning and worked for a little bit, and then just trying to round up stuff to go backpacking when I'm in the middle of like construction projects and life, and everything's not where it's supposed to be right now. So it took a while to get out the door today. And so I was hiking in the dark, and that's okay. It was actually really enjoyable and rewarding. And being able to like set up camp in the dark and the whole thing that's okay. It's good practice. Not carrying a stove today, cooking over fire. I am carrying a stove. I'm carrying a wood stove, and I'll show that to you in the morning and cook my morning coffee and breakfast with it. But now it's bedtime. It's a calm night. I think the temperature's going up. I think the low hit around 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, and then it definitely feels warmer right now. Still got a bite in the air, but it does not feel below 10 degrees. It might be 12 or 14 or something like that. So I think it's going to be a nice night. It's calm. It's clear. I can see the stars. Off to my east, I can see faintly the lights of Cheyenne, and off to the west, I can see the lights of Laramie, and I'm tucked into a little winter mountain wonderland here in the Sherman Range. So it's pretty awesome. It's really quiet here. which is nice. All right. Good night. Going to bed. See you in the morning. This is the new Sulak 46 titanium wood stove. I'll put a link to it down in the video description. But I wanted to show you that even when you're using really junky wood, I'm using like half rotten sagebrush, and it's burning smokeless and totally clean right now. It's a really great design. These are double wall wood gas burning stoves, so they suck air in to the intake holes on the bottom. That air heats up and then delivers hot air into the flame, so it burns really clean. A great fuel efficient stove that can use virtually any type of wood. And this is what we're going to be making breakfast on this morning. Okay, so there's the Sulak 46 titanium wood stove. It weighs about 2.5 ounces. It's the lightest, I'm going to call it the lightest functional wood stove on the market. I just boiled a liter of water, and there's smaller ones. I don't know if they're lighter, but there are some smaller, tiny ones that you might be able to warm up water in a 6-ounce cup, but they're not functional for cooking in the backcountry. This one certainly is. It has the chops to do it. It's much warmer this morning. I don't have to sit out here with my parka on. It's still pretty chilly, especially when the sun goes behind a cloud, but it's pretty nice. I think the temperature bottomed out last night at about 9 degrees. And this morning when I woke up at sunrise, it was about 15. So now it's well into the 20s, I think. It's pretty nice, especially with the sun shining. Breakfast is muesli with blueberries and apples. I stayed really warm last night. I slept in the REI Magma sleeping bag, which has a rating of 10, but the new EU ratings are a little bit different. They define a comfort range. So a range where you feel warm in the bag, and then a survival rating. So the comfort range for the Magma is between 10 and 18 degrees. I've had really good night's sleep in the Magma at 10 degrees wearing long johns and maybe a thin insulating top like this, which is what I wore last night. But I was also in the bivy sack, and that really helps prevent heat loss because of the waterproof breathable fabric. I had no condensation in my bivvy. I seldom do in dry climates like this, even when it's really cold. But I attribute that primarily to the event fabric. I think event is a critical material for bivy sacks specifically. I found it to be much more effective than Pertex and Gore-Tex. The wind did kick up last night. I was very thankful I had the bivy sack. It blew right through the tarp, but I didn't feel it at all. So I just zipped up the bivy and hunkered down and felt pretty good. But you could hear these whooshing wind gusts coming up over the hills, and you kind of knew when it was going to hit, and they hit pretty good, probably in the range of 25-30 miles an hour. But the tarp held up fine. My dead men held, they didn't pull out. I did get up in the middle of the night and cinch the guy lines as the wind picked up, but other than that, no big deal. No major flapping that kept me awake or anything like that. So great night. The only disruption to my quiet is I can hear the mastication machinery running off in the distance, removing vegetation. I don't want to know what that even looks like, but it's a long ways away. It's at least a mile and a half. There's helicopters, and you can hear trees snapping, and it's probably a pretty ugly scene. I don't like the noise. I think that troubles me. It's hard to get quiet anymore. I think quiet is really, really valuable. Whenever I'm out here, I like to practice fire starting skills, and I think it's a critical skill because it's the one tool you have to create external heat when everything else fails. And so I think every backpacker should carry a good fire starting kit so they can start a fire reliably. I think you should rely on skills and not gear to start a fire in an emergency situation. So I like to experiment when I'm out here and see what I'm able to do without fire starting materials. Most important fire starting material I think you should have is a flint and steel. I think that's the critical piece of the whole thing because it allows you to get a spark into tinder and get the tinder started to start a fire. The other thing I think is really valuable is a knife. You don't need one this big to do what I just did with pine bark. When I'm out in the winter especially, I carry a K-bar Essie, and it's the smallest knife I think you can get that's useful for batoning firewood so that you can get into some dry wood if it's really wet out. Also, it's a knife that I keep a very sharp edge on. I want to be able to create tinder out of wood like I did with the pine bark, and you need a real sharp edge to do it efficiently. The next piece I really like, and I used this last night to create big wood, is a saw. Mine is a Baco Laplander. It weighs about 1/4 pound. People will also want to take a hatchet, and I own a lightweight hatchet. I get it, it's really fun to use, but I don't think it has the utility of a good batoning knife and a saw that is really sharp and allows you to cut through, you know, 2 to 3 inch logs so that you can have a decent amount of wood for a campfire. Other than that, my fire starting kit includes a whole bunch of these. They're basically Vaseline impregnated cotton. These ones are called Tinder Quick. I really like them. These take a spark from the magnesium fire starter, which of course provides the initial flame. And then generally I can start most fires from that. If I'm in a hurry or the wood's really wet, I'll use an Esbitt cube as well. So I'll light the Tinder Quick and then use the Esbitt cube to provide 15 minutes of really high heat flame so that it can ignite the core of the fire with damp wood. So that's it. That's my fire starting kit. We built last night's fire on some gravel, and so we're going to restore the fire area to its natural state. So let's watch that transformation. All right, let's walk through a little bit about how I have my tarp rigged here. Tarp has line lock connectors on each corner and guy line tie out point. And then I have short guy lines attached to each of the line locks that I use in 3-season conditions. For winter conditions, I bring some extra guy lines, like this little tiny one, the yellow one right here. So I've attached the yellow one to my summer guy line with a sheet bend. You can see that right there. It's a little blurry. And then that gives me the extra length I need to do deadmen and tie to trees and things like that. Now up here in the tree, what I've done is tied a trucker hitch, and this I'll show a better one on another guy line. The loop on this one's really small, but everything's quick release in the winter so that I can do it with mittens or gloves, and it can go nice and fast. And then it just comes undone. That's it. All right, here's a better example here. Here's my summer guy line. I've got a 1mm Spectre guy line attached. Actually, this is ZPacks Z line. I've got the thin ZPacks Z line attached to the summer guy line with a sheet bend. And then up here in the tree, I've got a quick release. So I've tied a trucker hitch and just one pull and it releases it. And I don't have to fool around with knots or anything in the morning. And then the loop of the trucker hitch is also quick release and just pulls out. All right, so here's one of my dead men on the ridge line. You can see my summer guy line here. I've got a piece of Z line attached to the summer guy line, of course with a sheet bend. My dead man, which is a big stick about 1 inch in diameter and 1 foot long, is buried a foot or so down. And then last night when I buried it, I centered it by standing on this section with my snowshoe and my body weight for about a minute, and that just locks everything in and gets the snow crystals to stick together. Now trying to dig this out now would be a royal pain because this is pretty much a solid block of near ice. So what I've done is tied a trucker hitch up here so that I can just release the trucker hitch with a quick release knot. And then instead of having to dig the dead man up, I can just pull the cord out from the dead man, and the dead man stays in the snow. And then it's that easy. So a really great system for setting up a tarp in the winter. The only justification I can offer for buying so-called winter tent stakes that you bury in the ground like deadmen is if you are camping above tree line or in an area where you don't have access to sticks and things like that to tie your shelter to. Now, most people who travel above the tree line in the winter are going to use trekking poles or skis or snowshoes. Keep that in mind. You don't need a stake for every piece of your tent unless you're base camping. And then you need your poles and skis and snowshoes to go off and do day hikes away from your base camp. Then obviously you do. Honey Badger snowshoes. So substantial upgrade from their Quicksilver and Elite models because they have this incredible crampon on the bottom. So unlike the other Northern Lights models, the Honey Badgers allow you to do some pretty steep and icy terrain. I have the speed binding on mine, and it is wonderful for quick on and off if you need to. Okay, off we go. I think the first step is probably stop at water. Pretty low on water right now, and And I definitely want water for the hike out. Temperature is, whoa. The temperature has continued to climb. So I changed out of my Nano Air and just put my wind shirt on over my merino wool fishnet tee. And it's very comfortable. Temperatures are well into the 20s. I bet we're pushing 30. No gloves on. Sun's out. Whoa. Getting some water now. Everything takes more time in the winter. Travel is more difficult, especially on steeper terrain where there is deeper snow, unconsolidated snow. It just takes a lot of effort. You have to build time into your backcountry schedule to accommodate the extra time that you need to do your normal camping and hiking tasks. It's good to slow down in the winter and not be under a lot of pressure to accomplish something. Go with the flow. Sun is just beating off the snow. It's hot. I mean, the air temperature in the shade's like, 25, 28 degrees, something like that. There's no wind, bright sun. My brow's sweating, my goggles are fogging, so I want to keep my goggles off, but man, it is sunny up there. Oh yeah, no way. Still a little slushy, but we're almost there. Okay, I think we're ready for the Aquamira. We have 2 liters of water. I'm going to put 28 drops of each of part A and B because it's cold. Number two, this is rangeland for cattle. So you have to suspect that the water sources are perhaps more contaminated than a pristine mountain stream. The terrain is pretty challenging because the snow cover is so variable. We're going from bare ground to thin layers of snow, and then like where we are right now, which is just deep. Check it out. So it's not like you can walk in regular shoes without post holing to your crotch. So snowshoes are probably the best option, but man, the snow is really deep in this draw, so I'm going to try to get out of the draw and up on to the ridge line a little bit, hoping that on the ridge, whoa, it's exposed to wind, and so it blows the snowpack off a little bit. This is brutal. I gotta take a break. Okay, my gamble to hit the ridge, I think, paid off. The snowpack is much thinner up here, and I think there's a summer trail right here in about 100 yards, so that'll be good. All right, we found an old road bed right back here, so walking the road, especially now that we're on the ridge, should be a whole lot easier. I'm only sinking about 6 inches now. Snowshoe hair. These two tracks are about 8 feet apart, so he's hopping pretty good. So here are some byproducts of mastication. So it's basically where they bring in machinery and just level out the vegetation. Back in the forest where the snow is super deep. got down into a draw where the snow is up to my thighs, even with snowshoes on. So climbing back up to get to the ridge seemed to be a little better up there. Makes for a longer route, but hopefully easier. And the farther I climb up the hill, the shallower the snow gets. So that gamble is paying off so far. This last little bit up to the top is steep. Apparently we're on the windward side of the ridge where snow accumulates. I'm actually hiking into the wind now, so it's very slow going, but we're almost there. Okay, we made it. Windy and cold. Sun's behind some clouds now, the wind's picked up. So I think I'm gonna find a windward side of a rock to settle down on and have some lunch and water. Not much snow up here on the ridge. I'm walking on a bare trail now. But it beats slogging through drifts that require you to post hole 2 feet now. The rocks are pretty much protecting us from the wind, so we'll drop down and have lunch here. The only bummer is that in that direction you can hear the mastication machinery, and it's like, it's so destructive. Today's lunch is smoked rainbow trout, a pretzel baguette from Trader Joe's, oh man, it's so good. Look at that. Trader Joe's smoked rainbow trout. Cutting my lunch short so I can get home. Plus, it's just not a relaxing sound to be in such a beautiful place and hear heavy machinery do their thing. Still on this like patchwork of deep snow, bare ground, bare rock, and shallow snow. Still glad I have snowshoes on. I think that was ultimately the right choice today. Okay, we are through our third and final gate of the trip. Making the home stretch to the car now. So I'm going to turn the camera off, enjoy some quiet introspection on the way back, reflect on the trip, and just wanted to say thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. I'll see you next time. Happy trails.